Okay, I'm live. Assalamu alaikum. Peace be upon you. That's the Muslim way of saying hello. It means I wish you peace and good stuff. Okay, so let me quickly do a quick intro to what this happiness class is. It's going to be for an hour. It happens every week, and it's about teaching people who are Muslim or not Muslim the principles of happiness, easy to follow principles of happiness, bit by bit. Um, yeah, and you're very welcome to ask questions on this live stream. You're even welcome to ask questions in the comment section after the show has finished. Let me quickly talk about what's going to happen in this show by sharing the right things. I'm going to stop sharing and then I'm going to start sharing again. And I need to share application. This is my little list of what I'm going to talk about today. So let's see what it says here. What the show is about. Yep, happiness tips. And what does happiness mean? It means not just like plain old happiness. It means how do you navigate yourself in the world? Maybe that's a complicated way of saying it. It's like, what's your role in life? That's important. How do you, handle relationships of all kinds? How do we make the world a better place? Because if us human beings need to feel good about our future and our role in that future, those are the kind of things that make us happy. So that's part of happiness. So that's my little introduction. Then I'm gonna here's a list of things I'm going to talk about today. So there's a happiness tip. I always start with a happiness tip from Islam called honor bread. I'll talk about that in detail or some detail. Every 10 minutes, I'm going to switch topics unless I get a question from you during the live show. Then there's something I got from my brother. He sent me a TikTok video on happiness, and I went through those tips and saying what's good about them, what's bad about those tips. Then how do you know God exists? That's going to be another topic. Then bullying, so all sorts of bullying at work and in all sorts of different environments. And that's a very common problem, I'd say, in the West, especially when people are unhappy. People like to bully each other. So that's something I want to talk about. The environment. So, like I said, in a few seconds ago, part of happiness is having a healthy world, for example. It's all about all sorts of stuff. Anything about life and making it better, that's happiness. So you can ask questions about that. And even it could be about religion. Anything that, troubles you, or I don't know how wide to keep it open. Like, you're not going to ask me maths questions. It's just about life, religion, truth, purpose, the environment, the economy included. These are important things. If there's no money, you don't have money, or the country's doing terrible or something, that's the economy, right? And Islam has answers for that as well. So, and then finally, I'm thinking every week I'll probably, if I don't have any other questions, I'll go through a misconception about Islam. Misconception of Islam? Probably should be about Islam. About Islam. Okay. And that's usually there's a misconception about how women should be treated in Islam. So we talk about that. Okay, so let's go quickly to my tip of the week, honor bread. Okay, so there's a saying of Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, he said simply, honor bread. And so what does that mean, and how does that possibly make you a happier person? So if you think about, we often have so much stuff and we don't realize it. We just want more stuff. We don't appreciate the things that we already have. And so bread is some kind of part of food that's overlooked because it's just like, oh yeah, it's just bread, you know. But if you honor bread, that means give it respect. Not like, hello bread. You don't talk to the bread. You respect it by enjoying it, paying attention to it, not watching TV possibly when you're eating bread, for example. And bread is just a basic example. If you can honor bread, yeah, have respect for the food you're eating, I mean, bread, then you respect most other food anyway, right? And so I don't prepare too much when I'm making these videos, otherwise it makes it hard to keep this series going. So I'll just say the things that come to my mind at the time. And so when we were in the Middle East, in Jordan, we used to really make a big deal in my family about bread. We were like, yes, fresh bread, we're getting fresh bread. We get to the shop and we really enjoy it, especially when it's fresh. It's pretty nice, okay, hot, and smells a bit like, I don't know, cake or something. Well, it just smells like really fresh bread. And so I made it a really big point for our kids, our kids, whatever, to really enjoy bread and celebrate just bread by itself. And then you start celebrating everything else. I saw a video, I watch a lot of videos about why people convert to Islam. And so one Korean person was saying one of his early experiences of Islam before he became a Muslim was Ramadan, which is the month of fasting. And so after fasting in a hot country called Malaysia, he said particularly hard was not drinking. And when he drank the water, he was like, wow, I'm so grateful that I have water. Because before that, because you just have it all the time, you're not grateful for it. And that's the weird thing. Like, we're not grateful, and we don't even realize God exists, because we often, not everybody, like there are people, but we often have so much of it. It's a kind of weird contradiction. Because we have more, we become less grateful. And if we didn't have much, we probably would be more grateful. Imagine, let's keep it simple. Imagine air was in short supply. You would be so grateful every time you breathed in some air. But because we have so much of it, we don't really, we're not that grateful about it. So honoring bread will make you a lot happier. So why did I pick this saying, our Prophet Muhammad, out of so many others? And maybe it seems like a really trivial thing, but the problem is people are so unhappy with there's so many things that they do have, and they don't value those things. So the reason why I picked this saying of Prophet Muhammad is because we need to get back to the basics and realize what is happiness. It's about valuing all the small things and appreciating the millions and millions of things we do have, because otherwise we'll never be happy. It'll be an ongoing material escalator, or as the Quran says, life will be like a constant chasing of a mirage. If you are a material person, that's your entire life. You'll just be chasing one thing, and then when you get that thing, you realize you're not happy, and then you think, oh, something else will make you happy. So to end this endless cycle of unhappiness, you need to start appreciating the small things. Enjoy what you have. Realize how lucky you are for the things you do have, and then you'll just suddenly start becoming happier. As I said in the beginning of this video, the things that make you happy, or the tips I'm going to give you, are actually easy to follow. It's not that hard to honor bread. Okay, just thinking, what else? Yeah, I've talked about that tip there. So exactly at 10 past, I'm going to talk about the next thing. But yeah, honor bread, value it, value simple food as well. That is so important. I think with all these gourmet shows, we want really complicated food. And it's not even healthy for you to have really complicated food. That's another small thing we'll talk about. Next topic. Okay, so I was sent a TikTok video about happiness. You get a lot of these gurus or people on the internet telling you the secrets of happiness. What I'm going to say as a quick introduction is a lot of what they've got to say is so wrong and so unhealthy, and that is why I invite you to God's rules of happiness rather than human man-made ways of happiness, which probably don't work. They're just kind of like, they sound good a little bit, but can easily be broken down and you can easily see what's wrong with them. So here we go. One tip was stop worrying. Okay, so easier said than done. I'm not going to just say bad things about them. There are some good things about these sayings as well. So stop worrying. There is some value, easier said than done. So you need tips or reasons to stop worrying. And so if you break down worrying is thinking about the future, something that might or might not happen, that might go wrong. And there are many, many elements to that. And each week I'm just going to talk about different things. That's why it's good to have a conversation. If there's something that I don't completely explain, then it's always good that you ask me about it. But anyway, so how can you stop worrying? One way of stop worrying is realize that you won't necessarily, and this might sound a bit weird, might not necessarily be alive tomorrow. You might think that's the opposite of making me worry. That'll make me worry more. But when you realize that this could be your last day alive, and that's this is a well-known teaching of Islam, that if you wake up in the morning, do not expect to live to the evening. If you go to sleep, do not expect to wake up the next day. That's essentially saying live every day as if it's your last. And when you do that, you just become grateful for today, and the next day is just a bonus. And then the worrying goes away. But a really big tip is to realize God exists. Okay, and that's something I'm going to talk about in the next 10 minutes, the following 10 minutes, I should say, rather. Okay, that really helps. If you know there's a God who's alive and it's reasonable, it's kind of like almost impossible that God doesn't exist, and I'll talk about that in a bit, then you know God, who's your creator, who's your sustainer, who makes this world a livable. Okay, there's so many things that could destroy the world, but God's constantly protecting and feeding us in amazing ways. Then you'll know there's a lot less to worry about. Okay, and you'll find that people who believe in God are usually a lot more relaxed and calm. Anyway, stop living in the past. Stop living in the past. Okay, so these are just comments that he made, and he says things like, whatever's happened in the past has happened and you just ignore it. That's just really silly advice. I know where all this advice is coming from. Everything he's saying, really, this person who in the TikTok videos who said all these like 5 tips, stop living in the past, stop overthinking. It's all about this idea of being present in the now, which is total. I don't want to say total rubbish, but it's so bad and it doesn't make sense in so many ways, which I'll talk about in a second. So stop living in the past. You can't ignore the past, okay? But worrying about the past and not being hopeful about the future is a different thing. You've got to learn from the past. You've got to reflect over the past, okay? You've got to be sorry about mistakes you've made in the past and try to make amends. But at the same time, this is what really works better than just stop living in the past, is, I would say, 2 things. First of all, realize God, who in Islam always describes himself as the most merciful, okay? He requires you to keep moving forward and keep doing good things. That's the only way to fix any mistakes you've made. And God is merciful, so He will let you off. He'll give you the many chances possible to, rectify your mistakes. It's better than just crying about it. Actually do something to make up for it. And the second thing is to stop living in the past. An easy way to stop living in the past is know your purpose and direction. Then you're always living in the future. It's like, what can I do to make the world better? What can I do? Then you don't think about the past too much. You only think about the past as a sort of a learning curve to become a better person, or thinking of the past, how you made a mistake and you're going to make up for it. You're going to be a better person. This is something... one of the great spiritual leaders of Islam, Umar, may Allah rest his soul, is the thing you say. He was a great enemy of Islam before he actually became a Muslim, and he was about to kill Prophet Muhammad, and then something happened, I won't go into the story, that changed his heart, is the way to say it. And he said, he said to the other Muslims who had become Muslim before him, the ones he'd even tortured, he said, I know I've made so many mistakes, but now I'm going to try my best to catch up with you. Okay, so that's the positive attitude that Islam requires, to think positively about the future. So stop living in the past is not a very helpful bit of advice, but maybe to some extent there's something good about it. As long as you do it in the right way, like do something positive in the future, that's probably better. Anyway, stop overthinking. That's kind of Islamic as well. Okay, so in Islam, one bit of advice that Prophet Muhammad gives is don't worry about the whole project. If you've got a really huge project, don't worry about the whole project. Start fixing the thing right in front of you, the part of the project. Deal with one bit and then deal with the next and the next and the next. So that's, I think, a bit more practical, because you can only solve one thing at a time. But once you solve that one thing, then you're one step closer to solving the bigger problem. But if you think about the whole problem and you're worrying about the whole thing, then you will be you'll be frozen and overawed by the problem, and then you won't get anything done. That's not much use. Where Islam is all about making slow and steady progress. So yeah, better than stop overthinking, which is again easier said than done. There's a practical thing to do. If you actually just start making progress, you will stop overthinking. Yeah, when you're actually doing something, your brain can only concentrate on one thing at a time, right? So when you're actually doing something, you're not worrying and you're making progress, and you actually feel better, because human beings love making progress mentally or spiritually or anything. We need to make progress. So I think that's better advice than just stop overthinking. What was this bit? Stop trying to please everyone. A quote I got from this man in explanation of this point, stop trying to please everyone. He said, it is not your responsibility to please others. Okay, that's just rubbish advice. That's the opposite of happiness. Okay, so this is what I mean. Like, be really wary of the happiness tips. Listen to God's happiness tips. It's so much better. I'm going to explain why. Okay, so the point I'm going to make, I might not always say it, but there are lots of scientific evidence or social experiments to prove the Islamic ideas. Social ideas, not or evidence or scientific evidence, not even produced by Muslims at all. Mostly, it's usually produced by people in the West, and they all agree. Well, they tend to agree. I don't know, I'm not going to go into it, but increasingly they are agreeing with Islamic ideas. Okay, so if you want to be happy, you actually have to be really generous with making other people happy. Okay, and so there's a great TED talk, And I've probably said this so many times because I only know a few things, and those few things are enough to make you happy, right? Okay, there was a great TED talk which is about how to buy happiness. And if you want to buy happiness, you're actually much better off buying stuff for other people. That's what they proved. Okay, it was a kind of social experiment, and yeah. Okay, so pleasing others, making other people happy is the key to happiness. So don't listen to this person to that extent. Okay, now at the same time, there's a tiny bit of wisdom in what he's saying. Oh, 20 minutes are over. I'll quickly finish. There's a tiny bit of wisdom what he's saying, and that is that you cannot control other people. Okay, so you can try to make them happy or do them of service, but you cannot make them happy. And in Islam, it's the intention that counts. Okay, so you just do things to make God happy, who understands everything that's in your mind, and then you do something, and then somebody can still be miserable, but that's not the point. You did your job of trying to make the world a little bit better, but you can't necessarily make them happy. And I'm just gonna forget the last point there, or maybe talk about it another time. Who knows? How do you know God exists? Okay, so how do you know God exists? So first of all, it's almost there's a lot of misunderstanding about the whole subject. Okay, you might be surprised that it's scientific to believe that God exists, and it's actually very unscientific to not believe in God, right? And the reason why you might be surprised about that is because you've been given propaganda for such a long time, maybe, or that's what you get in the media, that you might believe that. Let me explain. So no scientist, next to no scientist, reputable scientist, whatever, will be able to tell you that it is, let me just give you a quick example. There's a small bit of your blood. So, your blood pulls out, okay, red. Why is it red? It's got something called hemoglobin in it. That's something you go inside a single blood cell. For one hemoglobin, I think enzyme it is, I can't remember, probably Google it in a second. Yeah. It would take longer than the age of the universe to make it, single one. And you've got like trillions inside of your body, right? So you should realize that it is so hard. And you might think, oh, why would it be so complicated? Because why would it be hard to have any sort of enzyme or whatever inside you? Why? Like, you might not realize that it's actually so complicated, you can't believe it. They're like little machines inside you. You've got trillions of machines doing all sorts of maintenance jobs inside you, and they're microscopic. They're like so small, you just can't see them really. Okay, they're these fantastic machines. You're an amazing machine. There is zero chance, practically. Like, it'll be 0 point with so many zeros you can't even count. That's the probability. Like, okay, the probability of creating a single hemoglobin, I think enzyme, I have to check what it is kind of 1 in 10 to the power 50. That's a huge number, 50 zeros basically. Okay, that means 0.000 with about 50 zeros. And yeah, that means basically no chance. Okay, there's more chance of you, for example, closing your eyes, walking across a very busy motorway and not getting killed. Okay, so what the real problem is that there's a bias against believing in God by certain kinds of people, especially hardened atheists or people who bought in this idea maybe that believing in God is unscientific. Is exactly the opposite. Okay, that's just step one, okay, of realizing God must exist. Yeah, so the Quran says things like, have you not realized, you human beings, you cannot even create a gnat. A gnat is one of those really, really small flies, like the ones that, like, yeah, I don't know, like 50 of them could be in my smallest, my pinky, is it? My smallest nail, right? Don't know, probably maybe more than 50 of them. You cannot create that. They're way too high tech. Okay, so it's just completely unrealistic. But that's not enough. Just to know that God should exist is not enough to believe God exists. And for that, you just have to pray to God, and you will have experience after experience. God promises in the Quran that says, if you pray to me, I will. Let's just bring up the Quran, isn't it? That would be nice. So let me show you how you do that. How do you do that? I've got 5 whole minutes. Is that right? Good. Okay, let's do that. So first I need to remove that, I think. Cool. And then I'm going to add to stream. Whoops, remove. Stop screen share, that's what it is. Add share. Application window. This one. Go. All right. Okay, so now I'm going to do a quick Google search. Here we go, Google. So not really Google search, sorry. Go and get to the Quran on alislam.org/Quran. It's called alislam.org. Really good website for strange title. It just means the Islam, I suppose. Okay. And so you go here, and I was going to talk about proving God exists. I'm trying to think of the verse I had in mind. Proving God exists. I mean, there's so many that come to mind. I suppose I just search Nat. Let's search Nat. Here we go. Let's start with that then. I had something in my mind, but I forgot about it. Okay. Okay, so this is the Arabic. Tell you a little bit about the Quran. It's always in Arabic. Why in Arabic? Because it's very expressive language, explains everything you need to know. Anyway, Allah, I've remembered what I was going to say now, but I'll quickly do this first. Allah disdained not to give an illustration as small as a gnat or even smaller. That means Allah is God. Allah is God, by the way. God, everybody's God, same God that in Christianity and every religion, Judaism, in the Arab world, Christians call God Allah as well. So do Jews and stuff like that, because they know it means the same thing. Anyway, so basically what God is saying is like, I don't need to just give you to know my existence, I don't just give you demonstrations as small as a gnat. Okay? Those who say we believe not that it is the truth from the Lord, while those disbelieve. What does Allah mean by such illustration? Many does he judge by it, and some do error by it. So basically, probably always good to read this by yourself. Search, go to Al-Islam, search Nat is a quick way to find it. But it's saying, this verse is saying quite a few things, so even a gnat is a demonstration of God's existence, but God gives you far bigger demonstrations all the time. Okay, but even when God demonstrates his existence, and I could give you so many examples of atheists who've experienced things but still ignore God. Some people listen to advice, some people don't. Okay, and God has said that he could have forced everybody to believe in God, but he gives people the opportunity. So he keeps himself subtle enough to, let's say, give some room for people to think, oh, maybe God doesn't exist. Okay, so this is the other thing I was going to come to, which is if you pray to God, God promises to answer you, and that's kind of the real proof. Pray to me. Let's see if I can get it. Okay, there's a couple of verses there. And your Lord says, pray unto me and I will answer your prayer. So there's a test. But those who are too proud to worship me will surely enter hell. So people are too proud to even test it. Okay, there's another beautiful verse like that. Let's see, almost there probably. Never mind. That's it for another time. Okay, so where are we now? Oops, I minimized that, and now you can't see anything. Let's have a look on remove, show screen. Oops, let's pick that up. The next thing we are on is, I don't know why I'm doing like this. I don't know. Okay, so next thing we're going to talk about is bullying, how to deal with it and stuff like that. So yeah, I often pick up topics that are things I'm facing at the moment. It's important to realize that kind of I don't live in some sort of vacuum or away from reality. I'm constantly facing things. And it's a demonstration of how to deal with all sorts of situations. And that's what happened to Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. He was a normal human being, but faced all sorts of trials, far more trials than a normal person. And it was a way of demonstrating how do you deal with such difficulties. So anyway, bullying. Very common in the West, because if people are unhappy, then they are nasty to each other. Just if you're unhappy, if you're a mean person, you're going to be mean to other people, and then that environment of being mean encourages more meanness. So it's important to realize that in Islam, one of the things we do before I start answering this question about how to deal with bullying is to generally try to create a better atmosphere, and it does that in so many ways: better families, better relationships, and things like that, and it reduces bullying. How to deal with it. So I'm going to say a couple of things I've probably said in previous shows before. One is to realize that you have only one sustainer, and that is God. So what has that got to do with bullying? So bullying means you believe that maybe, and this is often in the workplace, a person who's a higher position than you or some sort of control over what you do can be really mean and make you do stuff that is kind of horrible or mean or whatever. And you should realize that you only have one God. And when you only believe in one God, then you lose the shackles of any other God, right? But as soon as you don't believe in one God, and this is the value of believing in God, then you become a slave to so many other gods, as it were, your boss, money, and so many other things. So that is the key way to deal with it. Once you realize that person, for example, who's bullying you, doesn't really have control over your life, and then you start realizing ways of getting out of it. Okay, so just keeping away from people like that as much as possible. But an interesting thing in Islam is not to fight those people. Okay, unless they physically fight you, then you can defend yourself. Okay, why is that? When you start fighting with people, you actually use up tons of energy that's not productive for yourself. It becomes a nasty cycle. Just avoid them. So in Islam, it says, if people are rude to you, and it's in the Quran, maybe I should get a verse of that, but if people are rude to you, pass by with dignity. Like basically ignore them and leave them to their troubles. That's often so you don't want to get into copying their bad habits. Hopefully by you showing a better example, they might learn something in the future, maybe not immediately. That's how to deal with it. That's one way of realizing it. Maybe you might say, that's not enough, I need more information. Maybe I'll get back, got a whole 6 minutes, maybe I'll talk about it more. Why it was why does it cause low self-esteem? So that's really important. So I see a lot of bullying in different places, and people who are the ones on the receiving end, even though they know that person is the person bullying them is not right in what they're doing, the person being bullied starts feeling bad about themselves, has low self-esteem. So that's a bit weird. It's not logical, is it? But people do that. So why is it that they have low self-esteem? And so, as far as I can understand, if I put myself in those people's shoes, and I also have hints of those feelings, and then I get out of it because of the Islamic principles I follow. But it's like they feel like it's justified in some way, right? And let me explain that. So when somebody is mean to you and you say you can't do this and you can't do that, sometimes you say, I wish I could do that, because you're already bullying yourself constantly, and so you agree with the bullying you do of yourself. Let me explain that. So in the West especially, we're searching after material things, and we push ourselves really hard to achieve those material things, and we're really horrible to ourselves when we don't achieve those things, and we say lots of bad things in our heads to ourselves. Okay, so if that's a common practice of yours, then when somebody else bullies you, you also accept that. And because it might be, say, your boss at work and you don't achieve it, then you hate yourself for not achieving that thing because you wanted some money and you wanted more money. And if you could listen to your boss who was being nasty to you, then maybe you could get that money, and therefore you hate yourself. So that's kind of the endless cycle of negativity that materialism brings out. Yeah, so I suppose that's that. What kind of environment allows bullying? And so I've probably said that in the beginning, really. A materialistic environment allows bullying, and an environment that is not in tune with spirituality. What do I mean by spirituality? Two elements for spirituality: understanding your feelings, that's part of spirituality, and knowing God is really the bigger part of spirituality. Okay, real spirituality, not fake spirituality without God. I don't really think that's a really flawed idea. Anyway, so why is that? So when you're bullying and you're being nasty to people, you don't realize that you're immediately hurting yourself. By doing anything bad, you're going to start feeling bad inside yourself, and you will hate yourself. You won't be able to, when they say, how do you sleep at night? That phrase means when you've done something bad, then you can't sleep at night. So that phrase is there because we know that when you do bad things, you feel bad about yourself, and you basically tell yourself off a lot. Okay, so the environment that allows bullying is partly because you're not really understanding your own feelings and the things that actually make you happy. And people bully because they think that makes them happier, and it makes them happier. Maybe like sugar might make you happy for a millisecond or something, but that's it. And then there's a long-term sadness that follows it. So it's not a good idea. And also an environment that allows bullying or even encourages bullying is I've said materialistic already, but it's like when everybody's trying to climb over the next person and they to get to something better. So that encourages bullying. But part of spirituality also is to realize everybody's brothers and sisters, right? So in Islam, we're told that we should be like one body. Okay, so if somebody else is hurting, you're hurting. So that's if you have that brother sister feeling, you'll be so happy. And I've seen these videos where they go to poorer countries and people are just so happy because everybody wants the best for the next person. They're not individualistic. When you're individualistic, you're really lonely. So yeah, I'm trying to hit it on the 40-minute mark before I get to the next topic. But yeah, there we go, 40 minutes. Let's talk about the environment. Okay, so why let's talk about the environment? Because, well, it's an important topic, and that's something that concerns people who are responsible feel responsible for the world. So what does the Quran, what does Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, say about the environment, how we can make it better? So there are so many interesting things that the Prophet Muhammad said, but I'll start with a kind of a general overview of what what's it called? The Quran. Start from the Quran to get a general overview, and then I'll talk about very specific things that the God says about how to save the environment, basically. And so, did I close something? No. Where is? I thought I had 2 tabs. I do have 2 tabs. Why can I? Application, StreamYard, entire screen. It's really weird. Okay, wait a second. Because it's hidden. That's why. Okay, that's why it wasn't working. Okay, let's try again. So now that's open. Okay, when something's minimized, you can't select it. Okay, fine. Right, so let's give there we go. Let's search vicegerent. I don't know how to say it. Vicegerent. Okay. So, not that one. Okay, so this is a sort of a story, a way of God explaining to us how the good and bad capabilities of humankind. And I should just give a quick intro that Adam is supposed to be prophet of God, where people already existed for maybe millennia before that. So according to Islam, Adam is not the first creature. It doesn't really make sense according to Islamic narrative. Anyway, that's a bit of a sidetrack story, but I thought it was worth explaining. And then, so, and when thy Lord said to the angels, I am about to place a vicegerent in the earth. The word for vicegerent is Khalifa, which can have many meanings. It generally means a spiritual leader, which is definitely what Adam was supposed to be. This is a story about Adam. There are many Adams, by the way. But also sort of a steward, somebody who's responsible, not really in charge, but given power to be in charge. That's humankind. So I'm about to place a vicegerent in the earth, and they said, the angels, will you put something such that will cause disorder in it and shed blood? So God is well aware that we are very capable of destroying and things and causing destruction in many ways. So, and then they said, we glorify thee and praise. He answered, I know what you not know. I know what you know not. Okay, so it's the beginning, and then God starts demonstrating what good humankind is capable of, but it's not always apparent, is the point of this verse. Okay, so we're very capable of bad things, including destroying our own environment, but also we over time can prove that we can do good things, but it takes a lot of effort to do that. Okay, so that's just the general overview. But what else does the Quran say? You can actually let me just check that it's showing. Yeah, it's showing everything in this browser. So if you search Islam, or even better, Hadith. There you go. You're going to learn an interesting word. Hadith, H-I. Let me write in big, actually. I don't think you can see it when it's up there, but I think it's a bit bigger here. Hadith means saying of the Prophet Muhammad. environment, I think. There you go. There's so many things. I'm going to start off by saying that Prophet Muhammad even spoke to a tree at one point. So you might not believe that, but you just get the idea that and to make the tree feel better, you really get the idea that Islam is about caring about the environment. When you have wars, you're not allowed to cut down trees or destroy things. Okay, caring about the environment is really important. There's a saying, before I find one here, probably is. Have a look. Okay. Before I find one here, there's one that says, even if you have like a second to live and you have a seed in your hand, plant that seed. Wow. That is, I don't know, if that's not loving the earth and trying to make the environment better, wow, what else is, that's something. Anyway, Quran on environmentalism. Let's see what comes. It says, for instance, and do not commit abuse on the earth, spreading corruption. Okay. Elsewhere, and do not desire corruption in the land. Indeed, God does not like the corruptors. Okay, so general commands that do not be destructive. Is any saying here? Eco-friendly green life. And you should realize, I just read eco-friendly green life. Just about everything you do as a Muslim, consuming less, fasting, just makes the world better. Eating moderately, only eating when you're hungry. If you just did that, we would not be consuming so much and destroying the planet. Having less greed, so we don't start making when we don't even need things. Possibly just reusing things that will come naturally to you. Why do we keep buying more and more things? It's because we want to show off to somebody else that we have the latest iPhone or whatever, right? But if we didn't want to show off, we would just kind of get another iPhone or keep the phone you're using for a long time, or not keep buying new things or branded things. Just take, hand-me-downs of whatever sort, Let's see, is anything interesting? When he was traveling to take shelter under a tree, I was hoping for a nice quote. Oh, okay, here we go, some quotes. If a Muslim plants a tree or sowed seeds, then a bird or a person or animal eats from it, it is regarded as a charitable gift from him. Okay, and I'm sure there's a saying that says something like, so this is something like a charity that keeps giving or something. You keep getting blessings even after you die if you plant a tree. One day, we've got 2 minutes. One day, so there's different sayings. I'm trying to give a bigger picture as well, really quickly. So definitely, there's so much about being nice to animals, being kind to the world, being responsible for the world you live in, and stuff like that, and consuming less. All of these will definitely make, save the environment. But kind of another angle to it is, why do we, I kind of answered this already, but why do we inflict misery, as it were, on our world when we depend on that world? It's kind of sounds silly, right? But it's the same reason why we inflict misery on ourselves and the people around us if we're unhappy. People who are unhappy hurt everything around themselves. So if you're a happy person, then you just wouldn't inflict damage on the world. And you'll see that the most unhappy people are the one who do the nastiest things to the environment and everything. They just don't care about anything, because their mindset is, I don't want to say evil, it's just they're so unhappy that they probably kind of want to inflict pain on the rest of the world to make themselves a bit happier or something. They even feel happy when other people are unhappy. So as they say, hurt people hurt people. Think about that one. It's a bit weird, but Yeah. So in what I'm trying to say is, if you are a happier person, then you will inflict less pain on people and the world quite naturally. And very quickly we would save the environment. And we need technology. I'm going to quickly throw that in. If you're a happier person, and in the golden age of Islam, which actually made the golden age of, the Enlightenment possible, it was because people were good Muslims, and then they were learning so much and they created technology to make the world better. So we can undo a lot of the damage we've caused with technology, especially if you're concentrating on being a good person and learning, which is part of Islam. Anyway, next. What's the next thing? Let's go to this thing, remove, share screen, application window, click. I don't even know what am I doing next. Environment, misconception about Islam. Here we go. Women. Okay, right. So I could probably quote a lot of things about women in Islam. Let's start with that. And especially since I want to show you again one of my favorite little books where I get most of my happiness quotes from, actually. Go here. Yeah. Okay. So I need to go to that. Okay, fine. So yeah. Wisdom of the Holy Prophet. Wisdom of the Holy Prophet. It's can search on the internet. It's a free little PDF. Okay, let's look at what Prophet Muhammad said about women. There you go, a little section on women. Marriage, husband and wife, they're all kind of related. 8, 9, I don't know. What was it? 9. Here we go. 9. Maybe I should zoom out. Then go to 9. Oh. Okay. What? Okay, here we go. So, good women are humble, guarding in secret that which Allah has guided. Okay, cool. Yeah, so I'm going to read some stuff that might sound sexist. I suppose all of Islam is sexist in the sense that it doesn't have this kind of political correctness. It just, God says, I've made men and women and I know what they need and what works. I don't need to be politically correct or whatever. So here we go. A woman needs to be sheltered. When she issues forth unguarded, Satan pounces upon her. So women tend to want to show off, and yeah. I'm trying to think of something. So these are things about how women should behave. I'm trying to get a sense of how kind God was on women. So okay, here we go. I don't know. Salim, some lady, was one of the Prophet's party on a journey, and his servant Anjasha was driving the camels. So said the Prophet, peace be upon him, drive gently, Anjasha, mind the crystal. Okay, so what does that even mean? So crystal meaning as in beautiful but delicate piece of glass. And Prophet Muhammad was, peace be upon him, was saying to Anjasha, may Allah rest his soul, or whatever, to be very careful and not be rough. So I think a lot of women I've heard, especially in the West, are actually more sexist in a positive way and agree with Islamic ideas about being gentle to women. Women are just better at certain things, but also more delicate. So that's what Islam teaches. And Islam is very talks a lot about being kind to women. Let's talk about the husband and wife thing. I think that's kind of a better place to. There's the husband and wife stuff. No, not there. That was one. That was two. Husband and wife. Here we go. The most stringent of covenants is. Shall I tell you the best of treasure is a good wife? She pleases her husband when he looks at her, obeys him when he directs her. Okay. The best of you are those who treat their wives best. So I don't think there's anything wrong with these saying at all, but I'm just trying to start off with something that clears the misconception about how women are treated. So definitely, I think a good relationship within the house, and something I'll talk about later, is really important. And one of the things that are really destroying households now is because people, men and women, don't have very clear roles, and they're so confused, and men feel completely inadequate because they don't know their role. Their role is not defined. But in Islam, it's very clear. They are supposed to be the winners as much as possible, and so they feel, and men like to do that. Okay, and women like to take care of the house, and women are better at taking care of smaller and more detailed things, and especially related to emotions and things and small kids. It's not sexist at all. Well, maybe it is, but in a positive way. The best of you are those who treat their wives best. That's what Prophet Muhammad said. Do not strike the handmaidens of Allah. So handmaidens meaning women, basically. Do not hit them. So don't even hit them, right? A woman, so this is a really interesting one. 4 minutes left. A woman is like a rib. If you try to straighten it, you will break it. Okay, but if you let it be, it will be of benefit to you despite its bend. So it's even saying, do not correct women too much. It's like so kind. They don't hit them. Treat them. You are the best if you treat your wives best. And don't even correct them too much, because women have a strong personality in a certain way, and don't try to correct it, because there's some good in the way it is. Their personalities are. Women are in need of shelter, provide for them with homes. Some of them are afflicted with contrariness, so restrain it with forbearance and silence. So restrain I think contrariness means kind of being a bit difficult sometimes, and restrain it, not by hitting them, but by being patient and say nothing. So that's real. Wow, that's kindness, if anything. If there's anything example of kindness, the service of your spouses is charity. So yeah, so that's that. And I really want to say most of the people who convert to Islam are women. So I heard a statistic, and I've seen this really in England, but statistics in America says 4 times as many women convert to Islam as men. Okay, because I think from watching the convert videos, they follow the intuition. Okay, and they can feel Islam makes their lives better. I think intuition makes it sound as just a really subtle thing. I think generally women are more inclined to spiritual things anyway. Yeah, you see them following all sorts of like meditation and so many things far more than men are. It's kind of more fashionable for them to do yoga and things like that, which is kind of a meditative thing. So yeah, just the fact that so many women convert to Islam compared to men tells you something, that maybe Islam is actually a really good religion for women. It's actually a good religion for everybody. Thank you for listening. Please ask me questions in the comments below if you didn't get to ask questions. You know what? I didn't even check if there were questions. I wonder if there were questions. No, there weren't questions. Anyway, all right. Thank you for listening. I've got like another minute. I'm going to keep going for another minute. It's done. All right. Peace be upon you. Assalamu alaikum. Have a great week. Catch you next week, hopefully.